Good morning. As Silke said, I'll be talking about Program for International Student Assessment of Assessment Young Adult Follow-Up Study, which is a mouthful, so we call it PISA YAFS, and National Center for Education Statistics, a branch of Institute for Education Sciences under U.S. Department of Education sponsored this study. So this presentation is based on the report published last summer. And first I'll give a very short overview of the study and then go into results, which will generally be divided into two sections. Those that relate performance at age 19 to performance at age 15. And those that relate education and employment outcomes at age 19 to performance at age 15. And then I'll end with a few takeaways. So what is PISA YAFS? Again, this study was conducted only in the US, but basically it's all in the name. We followed up the PISA sample of 15-year-olds when they were 19 and asked them to participate in this study. The assessment design was the following. So at age 15, these young adults participated in paper-based PISA assessment undertaken in schools. At age 19, they took the PISA YAFS, a computer-based adaptive assessment, self-administered in their homes. Assessment subjects at age 15 included reading, mathematics, and an extensive background questionnaire that included common demographics characteristics as well as school characteristics they attended. So for example, whether it was a public or private school. At age 19, the subjects included literacy and numeracy and a short background questionnaire, which had questions on their current education and training, employment characteristics, attitudes such as life satisfaction, and vocational interests. PISA YAFS instrument was Education and Skills Online platform, or ESO, developed by OECD, and it is a sort of an online PIAAC, let's say. Let me talk a little bit about that. It was developed to provide individual level results that were linked to the actual PIAAC to be obtained at any time by anyone who administers it. The content and skills that ESO measures are based on PIAAC assessment framework selected to meet the OECD Education Directorate's overarching goal to identify and develop the knowledge and skills that drive better jobs, better lives, and generate prosperity and promote inclusion, social inclusion. The results are reported in terms of average scale scores in reading and mathematics at age 15 and literacy and numeracy scores at age 19. Proficiency levels are divide the scale by score point ranges that are associated with specific sets of knowledge and skills required to complete the assessment tasks within the levels. There are usually 6 proficiency levels for the two domains of literacy and numeracy, from below level 1 to level 5. But in this presentation, the proficiency levels have been grouped into 3 levels of low, medium, and high. And the groupings for each of the assessment was previously used in international reports to designate lower, middle, or higher performance. So we borrowed the same designation for this report. So now what we found out. The presentation will focus on numeracy because studies have shown that higher numeracy in adults leads to better education, employment, and other life outcomes, such as health and civic engagement. The United States is lagging behind in this domain, in fact, especially among young adults. So for example, in the last PISA assessment in 2018, US mathematics scores were lower than 24 of the 36 educational systems. So a cartoon like this really exemplifies the situation. It says 56% can't do the math and 54% won't do the math. So once again, we focused this presentation on numeracy, but the findings also apply to literacy domain as well, or literacy reading domain. As you see, most 19-year-olds performed at the middle level of proficiency in both literacy and numeracy, and about 1/5 to 1/4 of 19-year-olds performed at the low level in these domains, respectively. Distribution across proficiency levels was not statistically different from the population of 19-year-olds as a whole in either subject by sex, language spoken at home, or whether a student was born in the United States or not. So what were the performance trajectories of 15-year-olds when assessed at 19 years of age? 68% of the PISA YAFS population had performed at the middle level of proficiency at age 15. So that's on PISA. Of this group, 79% also performed at the middle level at age 19, represented by this majority red bar remaining in the middle proficiency level between the two assessments. 4% of the middle performers at age 15 performed at the high proficiency level in numeracy at age 19, and 17% demonstrated low performance at age 19. The red segment moving to the bottom. Actually no, 10% of the 15-year-olds performed at high levels of proficiency in PISA. Of those, 46% remain at high levels of proficiency in ASO at age 19, and 54% of them move to the middle levels of proficiency at age 19 on ESO. Now, 22% of PISA YAFS population were at low proficiency level in mathematics at age 15. Of those, 60% remain at low levels of proficiency at age 19. And interestingly, 40% of those of the low performers in PISA moved into being middle performers in ASO. In other words, about 2/5 of low performers were able to demonstrate higher proficiency at age 19 than at age 15. Now to the trajectories that 15-year-olds had in terms of their education and employment outcomes at 19. Our findings indicate that the percentage of US 19-year-olds pursuing various educational paths often related to the proficiency they showed at 15 years of age. So on this one and a few of the following graphs, we're looking at our 19-year-old population and what they're doing as 19-year-olds by their performance in mathematics when they were 15. So among high performers at age 15, 98% the sum of the solid bars here, had a high school diploma by the time they were 19 years old. 86% were pursuing a bachelor's degree or higher, which is a higher percentage compared to all of the 19-year-olds, the 45%. Among low performers at 15, 63% had completed a high school diploma by the time they were 19 years of age. Again, those solid bars here. And proportionally fewer low performers at 15 were pursuing a bachelor degree or higher at 19. So 15% versus 45% for the 19-year-olds as a whole. In contrast, proportionately more low performers at age 15 were still pursuing their high school diploma, which is a secondary school in US, 22% versus 9% for all of the adults. When we combine pre-associates, associates, bachelors, and higher degrees from the last slide, about 65% of all 19-year-olds were pursuing higher degrees. Our findings indicate that the area of study pursued, the red bars in this graph, varied by proficiency levels. So the high performers at age 15, the yellow bars on the graph, were more frequently pursuing studies in science and engineering than did all of the 19-year-olds. Sorry. Um, 29% of high performers were studying science compared to the 12% in that field among all of the 19-year-olds. And similarly, 21% of high performers were studying engineering compared to 7% in that field among all the 19-year-olds. Among low performers at age 15, the gray bars here, the rates of pursuing social sciences, and engineering were lower than among all 19-year-olds. Here we're looking at the combined education and employment status of the 19-year-olds by their proficiency at 15. So as with participation in formal education, mathematics performance at 15 was related to education and employment outcomes at 19. The majority of high performers in mathematics at age 15 were in formal education only at age 19. Low performers, so that's 54% compared to, let me go back a second. 54% compared to 35% of for all of the 19-year-olds. Low performers at age 15 had a lower rate of combining employment and education at age 19. And of employment only compared to all of the 19-year-olds. So for other life outcomes at 19, we examined level of self-efficacy towards job seeking, life satisfaction, and vocational interests. Level of self-efficacy towards job towards job seeking and life satisfaction did not vary by the performance at age 15. However, there were some differences by vocational interests. So vocational interests are said to reflect the types of work the person would enjoy based on the personality characteristics. Previous research has found that these influence cognitive competencies, and when well matched with individuals' educational and occupational choices, their well-being and satisfaction. In our study, 19-year-olds were asked to respond on a 5-point scale to 60 related questions about the degree to which they would like or dislike various activities. So US 19-year-olds were, as a whole, mostly interested in social vocations, defined as those that involve working with other people to help them learn and grow. They scored higher for the interests in these vocations than any other type. They scored lowest for interest in realistic vocations, defined as a preference for work with practical hands-on problems and answers. And they also scored low in conventional vocations, defined as preference for work that follows set procedures and routines. Now, high performers at age 15 had lower level of interest in enterprising vocations than all of the 19-year-olds. Enterprising vocations include work that involves starting up and carrying out business projects and other projects. High performers also had a higher level of interest in investigative vocations than all of the 19-year-olds. And investigative vocations include work that involves ideas and thinking rather than physical activity or leading people. In contrast, among low performers at age 15, there was a lower interest in investigative vocations than the population overall at age 19 years of age. So the main takeaway from the study is that low mathematics proficiency at age 15, and it largely applies to reading proficiency as well. In our study was associated with lower education trajectories. For example, still being in high school at age 19, lower rates of potentially advantageous outcomes, for example, pursuing a bachelor's degree or above, and higher rates of less advantageous outcomes, for example, only working at age 19, so not being in education. And with that, I will end my presentation, but these are my lovely co-authors for the report. And I think I'm done.